Go. Another week, another live stream. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully we got everything connected as usual. Just a little thumbs up in the chat. Let me know that you guys can see me, hear me. Audio visual is good. Go ahead and have a sip of my coffee. Good morning or good evening, Bill from Liverpool. Excellent. We had like an epic windstorm here yesterday too. It was crazy. All good. Okay. Mr. Cole, thanks for coming on. Gunter, thank you for coming. Chris, sorry you're here. As usual. Hey, Willie, how you doing, bud? Excellent. A lot of the usual crowd. Oh, Davide. Dominic, thanks for coming on. Michael and Jeff, sweet. John, how's it going, John? Mr. Talbot, hopefully everyone's doing great. I still love it that we can do this. You know, I'm sitting over here by San Francisco, and you guys are in the UK, in Mexico, and Germany, and man, all kinds of amazing places. Matthias, thanks for coming on today. Rian, as usual, thank you. Sweet. So today what we're going to do, I thought it'd be fun. You know, obviously this time of year is what are the trends for this year, right? Now, a lot of those articles kind of started coming out in like November, December and whatnot. And I actually took time I kind of reviewed a lot. I watched a bunch of the YouTube videos or a bunch of YouTube videos out there. And then scrolled through just a ton of articles, blog posts. And there's obviously a lot of overlap. And some of the stuff I just thought was garbage. And so today I chose three. Okay, I chose three different, actually, if you want, I'll put them in the chat, but we'll talk about them as well. So I chose three different blog articles that I thought represented the best that I could find. Okay. And then, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go through those. Obviously there's going to be overlapping even with the three articles that I found. And then we'll talk about how we can implement these, using RapidWeaver and Stacks and, Foundation and stuff like that. So, yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. So the first one that I'm going to be working on, we're going to be looking at is this Envato. I thought their article was pretty decent. Let me go ahead and get this URL. I'll pop this URL on the chat. Okay. So this was Envato. Envato is kind of an online marketplace for web design stuff. So obviously, they're going to be doing, a trends thing. And I thought this was really well laid out. I like that it had a kind of table of contents at the beginning. But let's just jump in. The first trend of 2021 is dark mode. So not really surprising, right? Although I do have to say I was a little surprised that a lot of examples, not necessarily on this blog article, they don't really link to many. I didn't actually click to go to a lot of these live examples that they have. But a lot of examples that a lot of websites displayed were just a dark website, not necessarily dark mode, right? And that gives, when I see dark mode, I think we're giving someone the option to view their website either dark or a light theme, right? Obviously, there's a lot of controversy with dark mode. Some people love it. Some people hate it, right? So maybe, I think kind of an underlying theme to this trend is not necessarily dark mode, but it's about customizing our websites for our visitors, right? So maybe a visitor would prefer dark mode. So if they prefer dark mode, give them dark mode sort of thing, right? So while I do think maybe we'll see that as a 2022 trend, right? But in terms of, taking it to the next level and really customizing it for our users. So dark mode, that is, let's say I'm currently in dark mode, right? But if I go to someone, let's see if I don't think Apple.com customizes it. Does it? Okay, so I'm just interested. So a lot of you didn't know, I'm currently running dark mode on Big Sur. And if I go to Apple's website, their toolbar is dark, right? And there's obviously, this is white and this is black. But I'm curious if I go ahead, and I would expect Apple to have this of all people. If I switch my theme to be light mode, okay, now if I refresh my site, bad Apple. See, Apple doesn't even do it, okay? So that was interesting. I was actually kind of expecting that. So there's two ways we can target dark mode, okay, inside RapidWeaver. We actually have the ability to detect, at least with Safari, whether or not a user has enabled light or dark mode inside Mac OS. Okay, and same thing now on iPad OS. Okay, because iPad OS you can customize that as well. Okay, then the next ability. Oops, I don't want to go perusing through Apple's website. The next way that we could do it is like via maybe some sort of button or some sort of toggle. Okay. So let's just quickly, before we kind of look at the other trends, let's just look at that really quick inside RapidWeaver. Okay. So theoretically, every swatch that we have in Foundation 6, oops, I kind of I'm showing us some stuff we're going to do in the future today. Okay. Let's just add a simple background swatch. Okay. And just for fun, I'm just going to set this to be actually just go elements body. Okay. So inside the media query option, inside every single swatch, well, any swatch that has a media query, you should notice that right here inside the media query, there's the ability to choose dark mode. Okay. And what happens is this will apply your particular style. So for example, here, I'm just going to go ahead and set the background to a dark blue of the site. So I'm going to preview this in Safari. If you notice, so I'm currently setting the background for a web page. Okay. And right now we'll see that the web page, and there's no content, but the web page itself is dark, right? Has that dark blue background. Okay. But if I go into system preferences, general, and I change my theme to light, look, voila, my web page background is now white. It's not dark color anymore. And again, if I change it back to dark, look, voila, I don't even need to refresh the web page. Pretty cool, right? I don't even need to refresh the web page, and the browser is automatically applying new styles because it knows dark mode has been enabled. Okay. Now this is a very simple scenario where I'm just changing the background color. But now you can see that we can now apply different styles if someone has dark mode. We can apply different backgrounds. We can apply different colors to text. We can apply, all kinds of other things. Now, just a word of caution. When selling this feature to your site or to your customers, please be aware that supporting light and dark mode is double the work. So charge accordingly. Okay. If you're going to be offering this as an option to your customers, it is double the work. You have to make sure everything looks good in light and dark style. Okay. Other things, there are going to be some pictures that you have that will look great on light and dark, but maybe if a picture doesn't look good in dark mode, there's actually going to be an option here. If we look at Media Query here also supports dark mode. So you can actually customize images. So you can display one image when you're in dark mode and a different image when you're in light mode. Okay, so this is already being integrated all throughout Foundation 6 stacks. Okay. Now, what if you didn't want to do the automatic light dark based on the OS? What if you wanted to manually toggle something? Okay. So if you are a user of my swatch pack that is still getting worked on and going to be released pretty soon, you will know that there is a where is it? Did I put it under? Oh, there. I put it under general. Interesting. Okay, maybe I'll move that to component. There's something called a toggler. And what this allows you to do, it allows you to toggle the class of something based on clicking a button, right? So I'm not going to show you an example of this. I don't want to eat up tons of time. But with this toggler stack, you could potentially have a button or a link that can toggle a dark class on the body. Okay, so what you could do here is you could say, I want to toggle class just dark dash mode. Okay, and we want to toggle this on body. So here you can toggle something. So you can say, I want to toggle dark mode on the body of the web page. Okay, then in this case, if we go back to that background option, is if you were to then, let's say I want my dark background, okay, on, whatever, okay, it could be body, or it could be, whatever we're customizing, okay, and then the parent class would be dark mode, okay. So essentially, we're now, if we put the parent class inside the dark mode class inside the parent class, we're saying, okay, when a parent above it, okay, so in this case, the body is the parent of everything on the web page. When it has the class dark mode, style this thing this other way, right? So this gives us, again, similar concept to the dark mode. Instead of using the media query, we're just going to target a parent of dark mode, okay? And we're applying that dark mode class to the body using this toggler stack, okay? Which, if you haven't seen how that's done, I think I've shown it off on a previous live stream, and it hasn't been fully released yet, but you can get the beta. You can pre-purchase the beta on the community site. Okay. And let me just talk about one other option. There is an option. I haven't necessarily used it, but if you go to, I believe it's Carl, rwpro.dev, he actually has a, here it is, dark mode stack. And I believe this goes with the toggle approach. Okay. I believe it, dark mode stack demo. Yeah, so he just has a little toggle up here that you can toggle light and dark mode. Okay, I'm not sure on the implementation here. He's probably just toggling maybe a class somewhere that maybe then you can target. So yeah, but this looks like a decent stack. You could probably do something like this with that toggle stack, with the toggler stack. But yeah, have a look at this if you want something that's kind of a little bit more pre-made. And for you, check out this dark mode stack from Carl, rwpro.dev. Okay, cool. Thanks, Carl, for making awesome stuff. Okay, cool. That ate up some time. So dark mode. Okay. Let's scroll down. All right, next is collage and mixing mediums. This, I think, is just a very generic trend, to be honest. I mean, they were talking about, I don't know. This is one I might not necessarily agree with. I think this is just a design decision. Here in this, they're talking about, they have like these image collages that are just like these random things on the page. This is definitely, this isn't necessarily something that you could do this in Rapweaver, but all the work's done in your image processing app, right? So if you're using Photoshop or Affinity or whatnot, image work like this, that's just these random collages. Another thing is collages in terms of grids. Now, I think those are, some people some trend blogs have called them grids. Some call them collages. I think those are just standard UI things that are always going to be in trending, right? Having data displayed as a grid or some sort of collage is important, right? There's a lot of great grid stacks out there, including Foundation. Obviously, you guys know about block grid and the columns and how you can organize all that stuff. And there's some other, column or grid stacks out there as well. So check those out. But in terms of this is just, like stuff like this, where it's like an art collage of various things. That's just up to your image processing skills, right? So, yeah. This next one is another one that I'm not really not too keen on. It's something called Antidesign. And a lot of times these are the websites you go to that, in the real world, I would akin this to be like the fashion that we see on runway, where it's like totally out there. Like you see it and you go, wow, okay, you're just trying to be trendy, like a hipster, sort of thing. Not even hipster, like even trendier than that. Like, it's just very edgy, very opinionated on, while this is called anti-design, it definitely is a design where it's definitely like totally out there, bizarre design, right? Where we have these grids where the text kind of just going off the sides. It's using, a lot of times these are using like extremely funky fonts, maybe mixing tons of different fonts together on the page, to get it just something that just looks horrible, on purpose, right? And I'm not particularly a fan of this. There's nothing necessarily special about it for Rapidweaver's sake. It's just trying to make things look bad on purpose, sort of. Like, it's very weird. I'm not a fan of the anti-design thing. Again, I think it's very like runway model sort of thing where, people go to look at the websites and they go, oh, wow, this looks interesting and different. But it's those sites that 2 years from now, it's just going to really, really look bad because it was something that was cool and trendy right at that time. So it's not necessarily something I recommend you really go with, is this anti-design trend. Not my cup of tea. Maybe it's yours. Maybe it's yours though. Anti-design equals lacking clarity. Yes. Okay. Minimalism is another one. I think this is another I don't think this trend ever goes away, right? Have more white space, everyone, right? We don't need to cram as much stuff as we can, all on one page, all within even a viewport without having to scroll, right? Let your designs breathe, right? Give it, look at these. These actually, some of these examples actually show some other trends that we're going to be talking about. But if you notice, all of these, they're very minimalistic, not using tons and tons of color, right? It's the content is the winner. So this is definitely one trend. Okay. Now, one thing I should say is, you don't need to apply every trend to your design, right? Obviously, some of these trends are going to work great on their own, but maybe mixing them is too much, right? So kind of pick a trend, right? Because there is like for example, in this collage, or even this is not minimalistic, right? Or even up here, this is not minimalistic either, but it's another type of design trend, right? So, I think minimalism is definitely a design that if you were to apply it to your site, will make your site look elegant for a long, long time. Okay. I've seen sites that used minimalism that were built 10 years ago, and they still look modern because the content is the king. There's lots of space to breathe in the design in terms of lots of white space. There's lots of empty space. And I don't know. I think minimalism is definitely one of my favorite. When I see a website that looks like this, to me, it just feels like, wow, this is really, really well done. Okay. And it's done by doing less. If you haven't watched, if you have access to the conference videos, make sure you watch Wolf. Adamite did a talk at last year's conference about timeless design, and one of his things was about definitely minimalism, having very clean designs. So definitely check that video out. Okay. Next is organic design. And what this is doing is it's actually bringing in kind of things from the real world. Okay. Oops. What was that? I didn't want that open. So, for example, this is a great example. This is florals, right? So bringing in those actual flowers on top of the design. It's not like a picture of flowers, right? It's actually integrating those flowers into the design, right? It's also using more organic shapes, which is another trend that I think is explicitly called out later on today. Is actually, using, as you see, we have these organic shapes that we're applying to our images. Okay, so how can we do some of this stuff? And actually, another thing that I wanted to show actually was a website of a friend of mine that talked a couple years ago. Follette talked, I think it was 2 years ago at the conference, and she talked about pattern design and surface pattern design, and what I think in her site design, what is organic are like these hand-drawn flowers and things like that, right? She actually drew these. Okay, she created these by hand on her iPad, or sometimes she'll sketch on a piece of paper and scan them in and then digitize them with Illustrator or other apps, right? But having these artistic, personalized artwork integrated into the site. Again, these aren't like, yes, you can have these as like images, and she has those there as well. But these are design elements that are integrated into the website, right? And I think that is really, really key, right? So, this is a great example. Even up here in her logo, obviously her logo is very organic because it's her, a handwritten calligraphy, right? So it gives a very human feel to this website. So I think Anne did a fantastic job designing this site. I just wanted to show that off. So what can we do with shapes, right? So I'm kind of going to cross over a little bit into some future trends that we're going to be talking about, but how can we create some of these shapes, right? So one way we can do that is another stack that's coming from the Swatch Pack is something called Clip Path, okay? And Clip Path allows you to easily, let's see if I have an example here already done. I believe I do. Oh, and I broke it somehow. Oh, I think I took off the Clip Path class. 1 second here. My clip. So let's just do this. So here's an example of Clip Path where I put in an SVG of a heart, okay? And I wanna take this picture and clip it to that path, right, to that image. So what I can do is I'm just gonna put in my clip. Let's preview that again. There we go. Right. So as you see, I mean, that this particular swatch has a bunch of built-in shapes that you can do. Right. So you can do like a diamond. Right. Or you can do, various other, organic kind of shapes on your site. And you can clip that to not just images, to any content you want. Right. But that's a great way of doing images. Also, just injecting kind of SVGs onto the page as well, definitely gives, sites that, an interesting feel by, integrating shapes into things instead of just having, a routine kind of square images everywhere. Okay. Next up is illustrations. And there's a couple different design trends for illustrations. Again, this doesn't really have to do with RapidWeaver specific because these are just the types of images that you're going to use on your site. One is a trend of using just pure black and white imagery. And also, if you notice, a lot of these black and white images here are actually like hand drawn, right? Which kind of intermingles with that organic feel like I was talking about with Anne Follette's site, where, she has these hand-drawn elements that bring that organic feel, that kind of real-life human aspect to our websites, right? So definitely hand-drawn. Black and white is one sort of iconography that I've seen, okay? And then there's also these, you've probably seen imagery like this all over websites, right? So let's just go over to, let's see, where is it? Here it is. Oops, it's over here. Okay. So here is, I like Adobe Stock. It is definitely on the pricier side. of stock imagery, but I find just everything that's in it is high quality. Okay. So I just search for marketing here. I know it's a very generic term. Okay. And what I do is over here, I search for illustrations and vectors, right? So if you see right here, I limit to illustrations and vectors. So I make sure I kind of get, that kind of icon look. And if you look here, like this is one image that is definitely kind of following that trend of these cartoony people, right? But one thing I wanted to talk about is making sure that when you find an icon that you like, that you make sure that all the icons or imagery in your website kind of correspond to that, right? So, and what I mean by that is, let's say you like, let's just say you like this one, okay? This has a very, very specific style to this icon, right? It wouldn't look good if I used this icon and then this icon, which is right below it, which is also very nice. But if I use those on the same page, it wouldn't look great, even if I were to modify this to like tweak the colors and things like that, because the style is just extremely different, right? So how can we make sure that we're using icons throughout our site that are styled to look the same? Okay, so if we click on this, now this is in Adobe Stock, but other sites have very similar features where you can kind of see all of the icon work by the same artist, right? So for some reason, Adobe is, let's refresh. There it goes. Okay. So here I can see more from the series. Okay. So this artist did a series of artwork. Okay. And if I click on see more, we can see all the icons that are similar from this artist. So we can kind of, since they're all from the same artist, they'll kind of have this very similar look and feel, right? Now this particular one, because it's purple, if we were to, kind of neutralize the colors and make the colors seem, these could match, right? Or if we look here, this, all these, they have a very, 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 the same exact look and feel. Obviously, if we needed, we can modify the colors. If you didn't want purple, you can tweak that background color. Because a lot of times when you download these, at least from Adobe Stock, you get the Illustrator file, which I then open up into things like Affinity Designer or whatever your favorite graphic design tool is. Most apps can download and open up Illustrator files. There are some that don't open up well depending on what features they use in Illustrator. But if you look, even this one, right? Because it has the same characters, the same type of people, they all look similar. So when you're looking for iconography or, graphics for your sites, make sure that, you have a uniform feel to all of the graphics on the website. Okay, as well. Cool. And just some more examples of some cool icon. The 3D graphics are kind of getting in as well. So these are more 3D. That's another trend, is using 3D graphics, which we'll see later on. I think the next one is pretty obvious. It's just having a more inclusive or accessible website. You probably know that I've been working a lot on accessibility inside Foundation 6, and it's pretty good. I know Guy, if you're here, Guy gave a talk at the conference this year or last year on accessibility. I gave a talk on that topic as well, where we kind of talked about, especially with forms, the accessible things that we could do with forms. So yeah, accessibility is a very important thing. I have some live streams on that. Make sure you talk about that. It's not necessarily a design trend though, right? I mean, it's a web, I guess you have to take it into consideration for every website you build. But it's not necessarily a design trend. I guess one thing you need to make sure is, which is a big design accessibility from a design perspective, is contrast, right? So when we're designing a site, like this blue and this darker blue contrast with the background white, so it's easy for someone to see, right? But if one of these were like, light text, okay, it would be harder to see, right? So definitely accessibility is important, okay? And in terms of accessibility in your design, that has a lot to do with contrast. And there are some tools out there that can analyze, web page analyzing tools that will tell you whether or not the contrast is good or not. I kind of covered a lot of those in my live stream that I did. Just go to YouTube and search for the live streams on accessibility. You should be good to go. Next one is the big one, motion and interactivity. Okay, so this has to do all with animations on websites. And unfortunately, these examples, they don't really show you the animations. But sprinkling in animations on websites is huge. And there's a lot of things that we can do with animations now, especially in with the new swatch pack. So with swatches themselves, there's things that you can do, such as, for background, you can choose, a hover state, right? And you can do things, changing things on hover. And then when you transition, right, you can transition that from one color to another. That is animation. So that's, as the user is moving over and around the website, things are changing. Okay, maybe you're, when you hover over a particular element, maybe you're making the shadow larger, making that pop, making it look interactive, right? So adding these little design trends, user-friendly equals accessibility, Willie says. Yes, it does. Also, minimalism also is kind of in there as well, because there's less confusing things on the page. Okay. So maybe I should kind of do maybe I should do a live stream on all the various ways we can do animations just with swatches. I think that could be interesting. I mean, there's an infinite things we could do, but kind of give us the basics on that. I think that'd be really good. Actually, in fact, before I forget that, I'm going to go ahead and write a quick note to myself about that. Cool. Quick note, so I don't forget about that. I think in the future, I think that would be an amazing live stream. Just talk. I can go on for way more than an hour on all the things that we can do with hover animations. Hover animations are really easy to do with swatches, because you can just change a style on hover. When you add a transition swatch here, you can make it transition from one value to another over a time, so that animates, right? Obviously, there's the animate swatch, which does, or the animate stack, which allows you to animate something on page load. I'll admit it's very rudimentary. It doesn't do any super fancy animations. And with that coming, a lot of you probably have seen, I've shown off drift a little bit in some of my past live streams. And if you join Hangouts, you've definitely seen drift. That's something that's going to be coming definitely this quarter. Drift should ship. And that is going to be like the de facto premium animation stack suite for RapidWeaver and stacks. Like, it is going to be amazing. And drift is going to really blow your mind. It's going to take what we do, even with, the cool thing. We do a lot of cool stuff with swatches in transitions. And also in the swatch pack, there's a new thing called transforms, which is, where is that? Transform. You can do some really, really cool stuff, like scaling things up or shifting it and skewing it and rotating it, all on hover. So the transform stack allows you to do some really cool stuff. But the drift stack coming is just really, really cool. Some really amazing scroll, animation on scroll stuff. So as of solutions right now, though, for especially animating on Scrollmate is a very popular stack out there, from Big White Duck. So check that out. Drift will kind of be along those lines. It'll be my take. It'll be kind of like an entire suite of stacks, for animating stuff. So Drift is coming, pretty cool stuff. We kind of talked about this one a little bit. I mentioned 3D graphic design is in, also geometric design, which is kind of shapes. Okay. This really is depending on your graphic design skills, or finding a set of imagery that from a stock website. Okay. So, 3-dimensional images, is definitely, they're cool. right? But that's just kind of a type of imagery that you can find online. See here, this one's definitely three-dimensional looking. Now, in terms of this one is like integrating the text inside, that's just graphic. There's no necessarily way, unless these were individual image components and you were, man, that would be pretty complex to do this without embedding the text inside the image, this particular one. But it could be doable. Okay, that kind of is it for this particular one. The last design trend here is just a sales plot to get you to buy a kit. So yeah, this I thought this was a great starter set. We're gonna jump into 99 designs now. There is definitely some overlap, a lot of overlap here. Okay, and now we're going to go into 99 designs style guide. Okay. A lot of this is very similar, so I'm gonna breeze through some of this. Parallax animation, that has to do with just animating. Okay, so animating things on scroll. We just talked about that. Drift is going to be coming up. It's going to blow your socks off. And Scrollmate right now, for those that have Scrollmate, you can use Scrollmate to do some really amazing stuff on scroll as well. Okay, Newmorphism is a new kind of term. And it kind of came out. There were some very interesting design things. People thought, Apple was kind of going this way. They didn't. And let me see if let me just show you an example of what Newmorphism is. It's really this, where it's everything's very monochrome, but all the levels and texture to the UI design is done by shadows and gradients. Okay. Now, I think this is very interesting look. It's very trendy. It's kind of like the very cool thing to do. Obviously the super round corners now, even macOS Big Sur, it has, much more round corners now. And then these shadows and gradients really make things kind of look, while it's the same color, you see depth to them. Okay. How is that done? So right now I found a pretty interesting tool. Oops. And here's an example of Newmorphism. Okay. And really it's not rocket science. It's just in this particular example, it's a solid color square, and we're applying two shadows to it. You will notice that up here we have a white shadow, and down here we apply a darker shadow. Okay, obviously they're pretty large, kind of spread out shadows, but by doing that, it gives this visual effect of depth, right? Where this thing is kind of hovering there, even though it's the same exact color as the background. Now, the knock on this design language or this design is, from an accessibility standpoint, there's a lot of arguments going on how good this is for accessibility, because of visually, some people might not be able to distinguish this, or it would just look like all the same color to them. Okay, so definitely be careful with this. I do think it's very cool, right? If we look here, you can also do gradients. So they kind of have this little doohickey here. And you can just copy this CSS and paste it into a CSS swatch, or like this was a background thing, you just go to CSS and paste it right in there. Okay. But you can also do this individually. So like, for example, this is just a this is just a gradient. So in this particular example, you'll notice that instead of a solid color of the square, it does a linear gradient. And what's important here is the gradient is the opposite of the shadows, right? So here we have the lighter shadow with the darker interior, and this is the linear gradient goes at a diagonal, where the lighter is over here with the darker shadow, right? So that is just a UI sort of, we'll call it language, okay? Where we have the gradient with that same two color shadows. This is just another type of gradient where it goes the opposite, where all the light's up here and all the dark's down there, okay? And if you look, this kind of gives us a more visual appeal of something being rounded on the top, Whereas if you look here, this kind of gives the enhanced that something is kind of concaved, right? So it's kind of curved in. Okay. So yeah, pretty cool stuff here. And it's all accomplished with some box shadows and backgrounds. Now I don't have it yet, but the ability to do these types of shadows where you have two colors shadows is coming to the swatch pack. It's actually the last stack that I plan on building before I ship it. So we have a shadow swatch that comes with foundation. And it would be the box shadow. This only allows you to apply a single shadow. Okay. So I'm going to come out with a more advanced shadow stack that allows you kind of like stack shadows and use multiple shadows so that we can achieve effects like this, with just a swatch. But until then, let me put this URL in the chat so you guys can play with it. And yeah, it's fun. I think they did it's really simple. You can change the colors here. Like if you want, kind of a dark purple, let's do like something like that, right? So there we go. Very interesting stuff. But again, it kind of gives the illusion of a design, but you can see from an accessibility standpoint, some people might have an issue with that. So yeah. You can use it to your heart's content. It's pretty cool stuff. Okay, done with that. Okay, so that is Newmorphism. Okay, not sure. I guess it's the successor to skeuomorphism. Whatever. Skeuomorphism was making things look like real life stuff. Okay, next up, abstract art compositions. Okay, essentially what this means, and we kind of talked about this before, is just lots of shapes. Okay, so these are kind of shapes. As you see this particular one here, this one at the top, miles, and we have these shapes here on the right, where it's just kind of like these shapes that are kind of put together, lots of shapes that are, thrown up on the website in kind of this, not necessarily, I guess it's maybe tickling that non-design or whatever, the horrible design thing that we talked about, the anti-design, that's what it was. It's kind of tickling anti-design, but it encapsulates it in small areas, right? So we kind of have this chaotic thing of shapes, that are colorful, that kind of, work well together, right? So, lots of shapes, kind of collages with shapes. We've talked about shapes already, but how we can use those. Okay, so integrating shapes here we have, huge, circles or, various shapes in the design. So, definitely integrating shapes into your design is good. Now, one thing that's always funny is there's always trends of bold colors, and another one is subdued, comfortable colors, right? So, I don't know. I'm not necessarily sure it's a trend. It's just a design thing. Do you want to go bold? Do you want to go more comfortable, kind of neutral colors, right? So I have seen a lot of trends talking about these more muted color tones for websites. Obviously, these examples here look lovely, and they definitely use a more pastel or organic kind of feel. Like these blues are more neutral to a tan, I guess you would say, right? So instead of having websites that are always full of bold content, these are more soothing colors that, I don't know, maybe someone would stay on the website longer because it's nicer to look at. It's not harsh on the eyes. So yeah, take that how you like it. Next one, web design for causes. I don't know. This is just saying the trend is design websites for causes. I know a lot of us do that. Next is scrolling transformations. This is a crazy GIF right here that I would leave this website in a second if I ever went to it. Again, drift is coming. Scrollmate's here. You can do a lot of really cool stuff similar to this, but probably please make it look nicer than that because that would cause you seizures. Okay. There's just some examples on this site with some various animations that you can do. A lot of that will be possible with upcoming things. This particular next trend is digital interpretations of physical products. I spent some time trying to understand what they meant by this. And what I'm thinking is my thoughts are, if we look at this top example, the kind of in your face thing is, they're obviously selling some sort of, nail polish or whatever this is, right? And here they integrated that kind of organic thing into the design. So like, into the design here, it's the physical product as if it was leaking down, but it's in the design, right? Here we have, fruits and shapes of fruits kind of sprinkled all over, even though the product is, a juice drink, right? So it's just integrating what the physical product is, if you have a physical product, and integrating that into the design somehow. Okay. Captivating questionnaires. This is an interesting one. I'm not sure, especially this first example here, if you've seen it. This particular example here, while very cool, is a completely custom job, right? I mean, this is like really, really crazy cool. Okay, not something I could even think about how to do this with a stack right now. Okay, so this is a completely custom job. If you want to do that, start learning to code. Okay, but there are some things we can do, right? For example, if we look down here, at this particular form, one thing we could do here. Let me just go to my let's go to this page here. Let's go to there is a pretty cool SVG radio options. Okay, so this is a pretty slick form that, as you see here, this is using SVGs with a radio button, right? So taking a form element and integrating it and really customizing it. And this is just a template. So you can drag this on the page. If you extract it, you can kind of look at how things are. It's not rocket science. Basically, the SVG, the actual SVG code is inserted into the label of the radio button, right? And then we have some special CSS that kind of does some stuff here. Sets the height to zeros so that we don't see the actual button. So pretty cool stuff here, right? And this, adding stuff like this can really help customize a form and to really take it to that next level of it just not being a form full of fields, right? So there is some level of interesting customizability that we can do with Foundation 6 forms. And this is definitely on top of the list. I think this is, when we did this at a hangout with Sarah, if you're on, thanks, Sarah. She was the inspiration for this. And turned out really, really, really well. It's one of my favorite templates, actually. I think it's beautiful. So definitely play around with this and use it in your next form. It's very cool. Okay. Where are we going? We're up. Let me close that. Don't need that one anymore. Okay. So that's just making more interesting, more interactive forms. Okay. Three-dimensional colors. This is kind of a mixture. This is definitely part of skeuomorphism, but with, color. So it's just using gradients and shadows to make things pop, to make things, give them the illusion of this three-dimensional thing. Like, for example, in also using interesting gradients, right? Let me give you an example in this swatch pack. Okay, yeah, it is here. Oh, but it's not very big. Hold on one second. Let me just give this a height really quick. Okay. Gradients like this, right, are very interesting, right? This is actually something, this is actually coming from one of the new gradient swatches in the swatch pack. I believe this one is, all right, let's see which one it is. Layered Radial. This one, right? Here it is. So this is actually using 3 different gradients, a red, a green, and a blue gradient, overlapping them on top of each other, and giving us this really, that is just stunning, right? A very stunning look. Very cool. So, making these gradients, these very interesting looking gradients that gradients are definitely the cool new thing in. Okay, they've kind of always they've been growing and growing and growing, but it's like even more in with gradients this year. It seems like, and these down here, if you notice, there's also subtle gradients. Like this particular example here with these icons, instead of using, I've actually done this a long time. Like Jack actually had a feature. If you know any of my old school Jack stack, which is still available. I'm pretty sure it's Jack has an option for gradient. I think I have gradient style. There we go. Jack has an option for a simple one color. And essentially it was Jack basically created a gradient similar to this, where it's like it goes from light to a slightly darker version of one color. So you pick one color and Jack will dynamically create a gradient, right? You can do that yourself with just like one of the new gradient swatches, right? So like if we look at this particular one, right? So if we just go from, let's say, let's pick this color code here. And I'm going to go to the end. Okay, so now this gradient is essentially one solid color because the starting color and the ending color are the same. But if we just go ahead and tweak that a little bit, just like that, and that's minuscule. We can even go a little bit more, right? Like that. Okay. That alone, like, I don't know if how much you can see that over zoom, but you can definitely see there's a difference from this color to this color. But it looks like one color. Like, it could be one color, but it's two, and it kind of gives this interesting effect, right? So really just doing a gradient that is the same color, just slightly different, values, maybe slightly darker on one side than the other, can really give you a very beautiful effect. It's more subtle than something like this, right? That has these three crazy gradients, okay? But I think both design languages are key and can achieve what we're talking about here. Okay. That was it for that list. That was cool. Some good ones. Okay, we are on the last one, and I think we're almost done here. Okay, here, let me put the URL to this last one here. Okay, there is the URL I posted in the chat to this last design trends article. Dark mode, we've already talked about that. I'm going to go quickly through a lot of these things. Elemental typefaces. Okay. This is something that's interesting. And what this is, there's a design trend also about, I'm not sure if it's in this article. I thought I had it in one of the articles. It's using basically text as your design element on the page. We saw it in like that Envato one where there was page. Here, let me go back to that actually. Here, okay. This is text as design, right? All we see here is text, right? And it's using that text as the design element of the page. And it's doing it by making the text really big, being very choosy about what font you're using. Maybe you can even, when you're using text this large, you can definitely use a more stylized font, okay? You can do some funky things like making, kind of twisting this one U. So definitely making, font as the design element of the page is a trend, even to this level where it's like the only thing there is the text. Okay. Using different fonts, and things of that nature, to help make that, here, homepage as art. And I thought it was here, right? So, this is definitely using text as the main design element. Okay. Here here's one using a very interesting font. This one might be a little difficult to read, but it's definitely a design perspective. And because it's large, it's easier to read than if this was small, right? Okay. Next is blur and noise. Okay. So we've talked about gradients, and gradients are the cool thing. Okay. There are some other pretty interesting design elements as well. So let me go ahead and How can we apply blur to things? Okay, because blur is definitely the cool new kid on the block as well, and they don't have many. You can kind of see it here in the background. You'll notice that behind all of these widgets, there's like this frosted glass feel, and then there's some like kind of gradient or some shapes that are completely blurred out. We have no idea what they are, but they provide some sort of very interesting something in the background, right? And then on top of that, noise. Maybe using both of these things together. I'll kind of go over both on how we can use those. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm gonna delete these things here. All right, gonna start from scratch. Just go here. Just need a new content. Okay. Actually, I want 2 containers. Okay, I'm gonna do 2 containers. And we're gonna do auto on that one, on that one. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and let's apply a gradient. Actually, here, let's do something cool. I'm gonna copy this cool radio gradient we did. Okay. I might do some more a little bit more work in Wrapweaver for some of this stuff, because some of this stuff is actually kind of cool. Okay, so I have this class, this layered radial, and I'm going to put it right on this container. Okay, this one, just so we can play with the thing, I'm going to just put this at height of 50 VH, just so we're not going to have any content here. All I'm doing is applying a height. So let's preview that. All right, cool. Some height. There we go. Next up is let's apply some noise, okay, to this gradient. Let's say this is very clean, right? It's a very clean gradient, but let's say definitely a trend that we're talking about right now is noise, which is, if you look here, there's a gradient, but it adds like this grainy feel, right? So that grainy feel, again, it kind of goes to that more organic, or kind of like bringing something from the real world, because like, old photos, photography had grain in them. So that's kind of bringing things, it's making it more real, right? Okay, so what can we do now? How can we apply grain to this super clean, crisp gradient? Okay, so I have the easiest. There's some really kind of crazy newfangled ways of doing grains with noise with SVGs, but I found this tool to be pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the chat. Okay, and this is just a noise generator. Okay, so you can generate the amount of noise you want, the density of the noise, how the opacity of the noise. You can also change the background color. I recommend that you export these as transparent though, and then you could define the size. This is going to be a tiled background image. Okay. So I've already created one, okay? And let's go ahead and I'm going to create a background swatch. And let's call this noise. And we're going to do a background image. I have this is a PNG generated by that site I was just showing you, okay? And image tiling, I want both. And image size is auto. Okay. And let's go ahead and preview. Oh, and then essentially what I'm going to do is, so this outer container has the gradient. This inner container will contain the noise. Okay. So we now have two things on top of each other, right? That noise, because I made it transparent, it's just going to apply the background from the gradient is going to bleed through. So if you see now I've added noise to my gradient. Okay. And if you don't like that, you can tweak it all to your heart's content with that little website. Download a new one, upload it to, and preview here. Okay. So if you don't like what this noise looks like, you can definitely tweak that. But pretty cool, right? Really simple way I think that is the easiest way to add noise right now to a background. Okay. I said there are some other like newfangled, really edgy out there, some SVG noise stuff. But those are also kind of, they cause some performance issues as well in browsers right now, from what I've read. But this, it's just a background image tile. It's been around in browsers for years, so that's an easy way to apply noise to something. Okay, I have it on my list to maybe try to generate some sort of a noise swatch. I don't know if that's going to be, I don't know. It's an idea. Maybe it'll happen in the future. No promises right now. I do think the noise trend is kind of cool. I like it. Does the noise class have to be layered? Okay, so yes, like if I put this noise class, I'm going to delete it on this, and I'm going to put it on the same one that has the gradient. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Noise. Okay. Essentially, when I add the noise class to the gradient, basically because they're both using backgrounds, the noise background is canceling out the CSS from the gradient background. So in order to get that layered look, you have to have two on top of each other. Okay. So let's go back to how it was here. Okay. So there we go. Now we got back to our noise. Okay. Next is, how can we get that blurred feeling? Like, I want to blur that background out. Okay. And the easiest way to do that is if you have my filters stack. There is a stack called, there's a swatch when you own that stack, and it's called, it's just my filter stack. It comes with two swatches. One's called Filter Backdrop, and the other one is, I think, Filter Pro. Filter Pro is more for images. This Backdrop is more for creating some really interesting backdrops. Okay, so if we look here inside the swatch, let's just apply this to, we'll call this Frost. Why not? Okay, so Frost. So we're going to do a background color of 50% white. Okay. And then what we're going to do is, if we just apply a blur, I don't know if you can see that in here, right? But that gives us a frosted glass look. Okay. Oops. Zoom out. Pretty cool. And again, this has to be a layered thing as well, similar to the noise. Okay. So on this container here, I'm going to replace the noise class with a frost class. And that gives us a frosted look, right? And if we were to do something here, let's do a different kind of gradient here. Here we do something like this. Let's kind of replicate that. All right, so let's do circles. Okay, so let's do, I have not done this. I have no idea if this is going to look good. This is completely off the cuff here. Okay, so now I have this. Now let's go back to, let's preview that. Interesting, right? So that kind of gives it similar to that other one, right? But if we go to our backdrop here, if we increase the blur a little bit, okay, maybe on our color, increase the color on that. Boom! Look at that. So I've created, I've layered 3 kind of radial gradients. I've added a kind of a layer on top of that I've then blurred out that background, right? To kind of make it very abstract. Pretty cool, right? So I love both of those trends. I think the frosted kind of that blurred background look, and it works great on images, as we can see here inside the swatch. If we lower the opacity a little bit, you can kind of see it bleed through. Play around with this filter backdrop. You can really see, really see it. Actually, this opacity is probably better to change that than the actual color. So if we do that at like 60, the opacity there, that changes it a little bit. Interesting. Yeah, play around with those. I love all of those design trends. I think stuff like this is pretty cool. I like it. Okay. Awesome. Man, I kind of got off on a tangent there. We weren't looking at this one anymore. Okay. Yeah, here. So noise, and we've kind of gone over the frosted and blurring of things, making it extremely subtle in the background. Okay, love it. This one, circles. So not only circles, but I think shapes in general, okay, are going to be big. We've talked about that before. They explicitly call out circles in this particular article, but I've read a lot of these trends, and it's all about shapes. Okay, either single shapes like this or those collage of shapes that we saw earlier, right? It's all about shapes. So yeah, something different. Oh, next is 3D illustrations and stuff. This is really, I mean, if you have the skills to do, this is all just video, right? I mean, there's not much web design skill here. It's all video skill. So whoever did this particular thing, right? Super skilled videographer, who could do these cool animations. This isn't necessarily web design. This is, if you have talent in 3D illustration and video work, right? The web design aspect of this is not difficult, because as long as you can put in a background video, whoops, I just hit my mic. Sorry about that. As long as you can put in a background video, you're good. But the whole point here is these three-dimensional designs. Okay, black and white illustrations. I've talked about the black and white illustrations. Let's see what some of these are. Okay, these are showing some animations with black and white. I think also one design, I thought it was in this. Okay, I'll talk about it. There is a trend of just having a black and white website. Okay, either full black and white, and then I've seen very interesting things where if you let's say you have an image that's black and white and you hover over it, and then you see the colored image, right? So you're splashing color in through interacting with the website. Okay, and another thing is a 3-color tone: black, white, and then your third color. Let's say red, or in this example, it's some gold, right? So having a 3-color design, black, white, and pick your color, right, is another very popular design trend. I have seen this a lot, especially black, white, and red. Red's very kind of anger, power, passion sort of color. But so pick a color. I've also seen yellow, which we'll actually get to. I think at the bottom of this, yellow is one of the colors of the year. Okay, we've gone through collages. I already talked about colorful backgrounds. Here's another example of that colored background that actually uses some of that frosting and blurring as well with these circles. Gradients, we've talked about gradients. Bold typography, we've talked about that, where typography is a part of the design, right? So huge type, on the page that uses interesting designed fonts, is definitely something. This one, they're saying cool mouse cursor icons or actions. Okay, so this is using your mouse to interact with the site and also being the ability to change the cursor. Okay, so changing the cursor is a part of the swatch pack. And inside here, we let you change the cursor on various things, right? So you can change the cursor. These are all the supported out of the box cursors. And you can change the mouse to be something when you hover over it, right? So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. Lets you, change, explicitly pick a particular pointer. Like, for example, if you want a question mark when you hover over something, right? That tells someone, hey, if I click on this, maybe it'll answer a question, or it'll help me out, or if I have a question, right? So it allows you to customize that cursor. Obviously, on touch devices, you're not going to get that benefit, but for things that have cursors, you will. Okay. And the last one is Pantone's, colors of the year. And their colors of the year are this illuminating yellow and ultimate gray. Okay, yellow's an okay color. Actually, I think Wolf is recently built a site that I think he showed off at his conference talk that I talked about that uses a lot of yellow. I don't think it was this bright yellow that this has, but it was yellow. Now, my controversy with this color combination pick is accessibility. Like this gray on top of the yellow, I'm not sure there's enough contrast there. But yeah, there is the 2 colors of the year. If you want to integrate those into your designs and be one of those types of trendy guys, these are the 2 colors of the year: ultimate gray and illuminating yellow. So those are the colors of the year. So yeah, that's it. That is my design trends of 2020 video. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Was it fun? First time I think I've done one of these. I thought it was kind of fun to kind of dive into trends and talk about how we can implement them, why we should do them, why we shouldn't do them, and all that type of stuff. It seems like from the comments you guys kind of enjoyed it, hopefully. So yeah, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them over on the community, and we'll talk to you there. Also, if you haven't checked out the swatch pack, if you're interested in that, you can pre-order that now in the announcements section on the Weaver Space community. And yeah, some pretty cool stuff. Hopefully it helped you out a little bit today. And Friday Hangouts. Remember, every Friday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific. So basically 1 hour from right now, but on Friday, we have our Hangouts. Hopefully we'll see you there. Actually, a little foresight. Actually, I don't think I'll be able to be there this week. But the Hangouts happen with or without me. So there was always a great group of guys there. And hopefully you'll join in. And I'll tell you, if those that join the Hangouts and hang out, and even if you're just a little fly on the wall, like those are the guys that make the biggest improvements in their skills. Because yeah, it's just a fun time. We just talk about all kinds of stuff and learn all kinds of stuff. So cool. Some of the best things that that come out have been because of Hangouts. So yeah, hopefully we'll see you there. Cool, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day, a wonderful week, and we will see you. We'll see some of you on Friday, and if not, we'll see you next Wednesday at the live stream. Bye. Oh, go smash that like button, right? Or the like button or the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber. I'd appreciate that. That'd be awesome. Just trying to get the subscriber count up. See if it'd be cool. Maybe get one of those little plaques from YouTube. Don't know if I can get that far, but whatever. That'd be kind of cool. Okay, guys, take care.